Welcome to today's Planning Committee meeting. It's Thursday, the 11th of December. This is a special Christmas edition, so I'm going to wish everybody a happy Christmas and thank you for coming. This is a public meeting and members of the public and press are permitted to report on the proceedings. Reporting includes filming, photography, making an audio recording and providing commentary on proceedings. Please note this meeting is recorded and streamed live. The recordings will be published on the relevant meeting page at the Council's website. By choosing to attend this public meeting, you are deemed to have given your consent to being filmed or recorded and for any footage to be broadcast or published. Once the premises must be evacuated immediately, do not spend time collecting personal belongings. All escape routes are clearly signed, and when we leave the building, the assembly point's on the High Street opposite the Guildhall. Most importantly, please can members and all other speakers use their microphones when speaking. They do move, but it's really important that it's picked up by our YouTube, but also so everyone can hear. Thank you. Margaret, do we have any substitutes or apologies today, please?
Yes, Chair, we have a substitute for Councillor Udall, and that's Councillor Desera, and we have no apologies. Thank you.
Great, thank you very much. I'm just going to ask Steph to say something about declarations of interest because we've got a Gallivant Park as an agenda item. Thank you.
Thank you, Chair. So the first item on the agenda is the bandstand in Gallivant Park, and it is before committee today because it's a City Council application. I'm not aware that it's been to any committees that any of you would have sat on, so unless anybody has a personal declaration or a specific matter to raise, I think you're all okay.
Yes, so Steph, I'm going to raise something. I've sat on the Friends of Gallivant Park for a very long time, so and I have been asking for this to happen for a very long time, so I don't feel comfortable chairing this. So for this item, I'm going to ask my Vice Chair, Councillor Agar, to take over, and I'll come back for the next item. Okay. Do we have any other declarations for any other items? Councillor Rudge?
Sorry, Warden Parish Council for that item.
Okay, and are you still prepared to...
Yes, I'm not in the planning department of the Parish Council.
Okay.
Just the...
Thank you. Councillor Cross?
Thank you, Chair. Yes, for Hoskins, I have been contacted by the applicant, but I have not given any comments on the merits or demerits of the application, purely procedural. So I've referred to my colleague. So keep an open mind. Thank you.
Thank you. Is that okay, Steph? Yeah. Okay, so then we've got the minutes from the previous planning committee, which was the 13th of November. I'll go through these page by page, please. We've got page 1, page 2, page 3, page 4, page 5, page 6 and 7. Is everyone happy they are a fair and true record? Yeah. Thank you very much, Margaret, for doing those, as usual. Today we had a really good site visit. The committee went to agenda item 10 of 6 Whittington Road. I think we all benefited from going, so thank you everyone for coming. Margaret, do we have any public participation or representation? Thank you.
There's no public participation, Chair, but we do have representations on all 4 items on the agenda. We have our property manager, Mark Sherwood, for agenda item 7, Gallivant Park bandstand. Agenda item 8, 157 Bramyard Road, Alan Coleman. Agenda item 9, 4 Hoskins Avenue, Umar Ghaffur. And agenda item 10, 6 Whittington Road, and that's Nicola Inchbold and Ed Musu. Thank you.
Okay, that's really great. Thank you everybody for coming. We love it when agents, architects and applicants come, so we have the opportunity to ask you questions, so thank you very much. Okay, I'm just going to swap over with Pat now, so we're just going to have a couple of minutes to do that. Thank you.
Thank you, everyone. Looking at item 7, which is Gellyville Park, the bandstand. Now, there is a late paper. There's not very much on it, but I would direct you to that. The Conservation Advisory Panel has no objections. What we're looking at is listed building consent for minor repairs and redecoration of the bandstand and reconstruction of the timber walkway or bridge to the bandstand. So that's really all we're looking at. So, taking it all as read, I'm going to ask our officers. Ros, I believe you're presenting it.
Okay, so this application seeks approval for minor repairs and redecoration of the Park's Grade 2 listed bandstand, along with the reconstruction of the timber walkway bridge leading to the bandstand. So Gellervelt Park is a significant public park in Worcester, designated as a Grade 2 listed war memorial. The bandstand itself is a key feature of the park, having been erected in 1923 and is an iconic example of early 20th century design. The bandstand sits on a small island in the pond, connected by a charming timber bridge, which unfortunately is now in a poor state of repair. The application proposes essential repairs and works to conserve the structure of the bandstand and its associated features. This includes repairs to the bandstand itself. This involves redecoration, the replacement of missing or slipped roof tiles, clearing gutters and restoring stone and metalwork, and replacement of the timber walkway bridge. The existing bridge is beyond repair. The proposal includes rebuilding the bridge while retaining the original brick and concrete piers and reusing the metal drawbridge section, preserving as much of the original design as possible. This application has been subject to consultation with relevant consultees and feedback has been positive. The Council's Conservation Office has no objections, subject to the submission of further details regarding materials to ensure that any repairs or replacements match the historic fabric of the structure. The Civic Society has similarly supported the proposals, acknowledging that the works will preserve and enhance the bandstand's character. Furthermore, the Landscape Officer raised concerns regarding potential bat habitats within the bandstand, but these are matters that can be addressed through an informative note to ensure legal requirements are met. The works proposed are in line with the principles of conservation and are carefully designed to retain the historical integrity of the bandstand and bridge. The repair works are minimal and focus on essential maintenance to ensure the continued longevity of this important heritage asset. The replacement bridge is justified due to the poor condition of the current structure but retains key historical elements. The proposed interventions will have no adverse impact on the listed building significance. The repairs will extend the life of the asset and preserve its visual and functional contributions to the park. In considering the proposal, I'd highlight the relevant policies of the South Worcester Development Plan, notably policy SWDP6, which seeks to protect and enhance the heritage assets, and policy SWDP24, which outlines the importance of sympathetic repairs and alterations to such assets. Additionally, national policy, as set out in the NPPF, emphasises the importance of preserving the significance of heritage assets. In this case, we are confident that the proposed works meet these requirements and will not harm the character of the listed structure. Given the essential nature of the works and the positive consultation responses, it is recommended to grant listed building consent subject to the conditions outlined in section 9 of the officer's report.
Thank you, Ros. I think that gives us a clear picture. I note that Mark is here to answer any further questions. Is there anything you want to add at this stage?
Just to give it a little bit of a brief overview, in that, as you can see from the photos, the structure is in two parts. We've got the actual bandstand itself, which is in relatively good condition with the roof and the soffit, etc. And then we've got the bridge, which is in quite poor state. Obviously, we need the bridge to get to the bandstand, but we are not doing any variation or changes to the original design. So it will be replicating what was there originally. That's what we're looking to do. We're also looking as far as ongoing maintenance as well, particularly with the bridge and the lattice panels which have suffered, and also the little drawbridge as well. So we're building in sort of annual maintenance needs within that as well, so that it will be kept fully functional.
you both. I mean, this is unusual because what we have is a listed structure within a listed park, and that's not something I don't think I've seen before. Does anyone have any questions for either of our officers? Andrew.
Thank you, Chair. I note in the Conservation Officer's report there's a mention of water goods. Is that describing rainwater goods? Could that be explained, please? Because I didn't pick up any change to any rainwater goods. So I was just wanting to just clarify just a little bit of wording in that. Thank you.
Sorry, could you just clarify on the issue on that, please?
Thank you, yes. The Conservation Officer's response mentioned water goods, which sort of made me scratch my head a little bit. And I was just wondering if anybody could give clarity as to what that might be.
No, I mean we've got the existing gutters around, and then there'll be a rainwater pipe which will discharge into Barbourne Brook. But I'm not aware of any issues there, not on the conservation side.
Because my understanding from the papers is that it's just a matter of cleaning out, not actually replacing any of the rainwater goods, and the metalwork was just whatever might be needed that was from the railings, etc. Is that right?
Yeah, obviously we'll be retaining as much of the original fabric as possible, but if we found there was a problem with the guttering or the downpipe, then we would replace that on a like-for-like material basis.
Thank you.
I'd just also say that, yeah, I mean, particularly the guttering, we have had limited access there because you can appreciate it's not the easiest place to get to. So there may be, when we actually scaffold and get up there, there may be one or two things that we may have to adjust.
Thank you. Are there any more questions for Mark? Jill?
Thank you, Chair. I'm glad you mentioned about maintenance because I was going to ask about that. It's always a shame when things are beyond repair, and one would assume if maintenance had been done, then that wouldn't have got to that point, or maybe. So in terms of the maintenance for the bandstand as well, is that part of your future plan maintenance? I just wondered in terms of protecting the rest of the Grade 2 listing.
Well, the actual the structure of the bandstand itself is quite good. There's one or two slip slates on the roof, but the rest of it's fine. The soffit's fine. Obviously, we can maintain the bits that we can easily get to. As far as the cast iron itself, what we're looking to do is to strip back the original paintwork and effectively start again with the cast iron, so we're not painting on top of old paint, which I think is going to enhance the lifespan of the finish as well.
That wasn't exactly the question. Sorry, forgive me. So you've got a maintenance plan, I heard you say, for the bridge once you've rebuilt it. There's a maintenance plan. Yes, is that correct? So is there also a maintenance plan that covers, even if it's light, that covers the bandstand itself? That was really what I was asking.
Yeah, I think it comes back to, I suppose, access or what we can get to, but probably the external cast iron structure is, I wouldn't say maintenance free, but it's maintenance light. I say the most probably area we need to maintain is the bridge, being the lattice panels, which are quite delicate, and also the drawbridge as well. The soffit on the bandstand we can get to, sort of the railings internally. There are elements that we're going to be able to get to, but there are others that we're not going to be able to get to so easily. So it's a case of, I think we can maintain it as best we can, but there are going to be elements that we would need to, put some scaffold and such, add to that.
I was still looking to hear that there's a plan. That's all. Is there going to be a plan to regularly check everything that you can? That's all I'm really looking to hear.
Thank you. Are there any further questions at this stage? Okay, moving then to the debate. Any comments from members?
So, thank you, Chair. Yeah, I think this is something that's sorely needing to be tackled. What's in front of me is encouraging in terms of papers and details and the approach. So, yeah, I'm very much encouraged by the detail in this application, and I think whilst we can do this sort of thing, we should. I think it'd be a loss if we didn't act. So I'm happy to support this. Thank you.
Thank you. Ed?
Right, there we go, logged in now. I was going to say, I note that the park, it's one of the most beautiful parks in the city, and it's got some fierce competition for that honour. It is one of our green flag parks. It is well used by residents across the city. It would be a real shame if the bandstand were to let it down or to be allowed to fall to rack and ruin. Bringing it back, into full use seems, just seems like a bit of a no-brainer, really, and the plan seems really very robust. I'm struggling to find anything. The problem when you've got a good application in front of you is there's not often that much you can really say to it, but it looks like a really strong plan on the face of it. I think the only question in my mind is how we ensure that the new timber bridge, as that is replaced, is supported to last long into the future. Thank you.
Thank you. Mark, do you have any comments you want to add at that point about the bridge?
Well, as I said, the two elements that are probably vulnerable are the lattice panels and the drawbridge. So the drawbridge, we will have some removable areas that we can effectively grease the wheels on an annual basis. And the lattice panels, we were looking to, at the moment, they were sort of woven into the structure, whereas if we put a frame around and weave them into a sort of effectively like a cassette, then if we do get any damage, we can pop them out quite easily without having to access from the brook, repair and replace, so we can make those a bit more maintenance friendly.
Thank you. I hope that's reassuring, Ed. Anyone else? I mean, I think this is an excellent project. It will enhance the bandstand and safeguard it for quite a long time into the future. And it's an important part of the park's heritage. So thank you very much for all of that. Do I have a proposer in that case? Thank you, Andrew. Do I have a seconder? Thank you, Ed. Sorry, Alex, but yeah, thank you. Moving to the vote then, could I see all in favour? Thank you. I think that's unanimous. What we're going to do now is pause the meeting for a moment or two. Please keep your seats. We're just going to wait for the chair to come back.
Okay, welcome back everyone. We're going to move to agenda item 8. This is for 157 Bromyard Road. We have got Rebecca doing the report. Thank you.
Thank you, Chair. Okay, so agenda item 8 concerns the planning application at 157 Bromyard Road, application reference 25/00859/FUL. Planning permission is sought for a car showroom extension. The application is reported to Planning Committee at the request of Councillor Matthew Lamb. The site is located on the south side of Bromyard Road on the corner with Watery Lane to the east. The site contains a single-storey car showroom occupied by Lister's Volkswagen and associated external car parking area to the front, side and rear of the building. The site is located within a mixed commercial and residential area and within a cluster of car dealerships on Bromyard Road. Residential properties are located to the east of the site on Watery Lane and to the south of the site on Willis Place, whilst the Lister's Audi dealership is located to the west of the site. The site is not within a conservation area and does not contain any listed buildings. The site location plan is shown on the slide. The next slide shows an aerial view of the site in relation to its surroundings. And the next slide shows some officer site visit photos. So this photo shows the location of the proposed sided car showroom and also the rear of the nearest residential property on Watery Lane. This slide shows the existing and proposed site plans. And this slide shows the existing and proposed ground floor plans. The extent of the proposed extension is outlined in red on the proposed ground floor plan. This slide shows the existing and proposed north and south elevations of the building. This slide shows the existing and proposed west elevation. And this slide shows the existing and proposed east elevation. So planning permission is sought for a side extension to the existing car showroom. The proposed extension would be approximately 8 be the same height as the existing car showroom at 6.37 metres. The proposed extension would be 8.1 metres in width and 9.74 metres in depth. This would be a minor increase in floor space of less than 10% of the existing 950 square metre car showroom. The proposed design and materials of the extension would match those of the existing building. So the extension will provide a small addition to the existing showroom area of the dealership and in turn facilitate the creation of a centrally located new car handover bay. The proposed extension to the showroom would enable the twinning of the existing Volkswagen showroom to also accommodate Skoda vehicles and an associated sales area. The proposed development would result in the loss of approximately 7 existing parking vehicle display spaces. The Volkswagen dealership is served by approximately 162 spaces. This modest 4% reduction in overall parking bays would have a negligible impact on the dealership's parking capacity. It is noted that the parking bays lost are existing vehicle display spaces and there would be no loss of customer or staff parking spaces. It is therefore not considered that the loss of these parking spaces would have any impact on nearby residential streets. There is no increase in staff numbers as a result of the proposed extension, and therefore there is no increase in parking demand. The proposed direction of an extension of approximately 80 square metres to this existing car showroom is considered to be acceptable in principle. The proposed extension would facilitate the expansion of the business and would allow for the existing Volkswagen car showroom to also accommodate the display and sale of Skoda vehicles. The proposed extension has been designed to match the design of the existing car showroom. The proposed materials also match that of the existing building, with curtain wall glazing to the front and side and silver metallic cladding proposed around the top of the extension and to the rear and side. Aluminium framed glazed doors would be installed to the side elevation of the extension to match existing. The proposed extension is considered to be of an acceptable size, design and materials. Proposals would preserve the character and appearance of the host property and surrounding area. Some minor alterations are proposed to the existing building, including a new set of aluminium framed glazed doors, which will be installed to the centre of the front elevation of the existing building to match existing. A green surround is also proposed around the Skoda entrance doors, which is the proposals are acceptable with regard to design considerations and comply with policy SWDP 21 of the South Worcestershire Development Plan. With regard to impact on neighbouring amenity, there is a separation distance between the proposed extension and the nearest neighbouring property, 21 Watery Lane, of approximately 20 metres. It is not considered that the proposed car showroom extension would result in any adverse impact on levels of daylight or sunlight to neighbouring properties, and it would not result in any unacceptable increased sense of enclosure. The proposals would also not result in any unacceptable increase in overlooking or loss of privacy to neighbouring properties. It has been confirmed by the applicant that no external lighting is proposed, and it is not considered that the proposed extension will result in any unacceptable light spill to neighbouring properties. A condition is recommended to require that any external lighting is subject to a The proposals are considered to be acceptable with regard to impact on neighbouring amenity and are in accordance with policy SWDP 21 of the South Worcestershire Development Plan. With regard to highways matters, the local highway authority has been consulted on the proposals and has raised no objection. They have commented that the development will result in the loss of approximately 7 existing vehicle display spaces, which is considered to be de minimis in comparison to the approximate total of 162 spaces on the site. The Highway Authority agrees that this modest reduction in overall parking bays would have a negligible impact on the dealership's parking capacity. There are no changes to existing access arrangements or to existing staff numbers, and as such there is no objection from Highways. The proposals are considered to be acceptable with regard to Highways considerations and are in accordance with policy SWDP 4 of the South Worcestershire Development Plan. The concerns raised by Councillor Lamb have been fully considered alongside the applicant's response, both of which are detailed in the committee report. The proposal is a minor extension to an established car dealership and involves no increase in staffing levels and no reduction in staff or customer parking. Whilst external lighting can be appropriately addressed through a condition, the additional delivery hours, staff parking management and travel planning are not considered to meet the test for planning conditions set out in the National Planning Policy Framework. In this instance, they would not be necessary to make the development acceptable, nor directly related to the small scale, and would be disproportionate in scope and impact. The extension affects only display areas and does not alter the established servicing arrangements or generate additional vehicle movements. On this basis, it is not considered justified or reasonable to impose conditions beyond those directly related to the form and appearance of the development. All comments received as part of the consultation process have been considered, along with all relevant material planning considerations. On balance, the submitted scheme is considered well designed, appropriate to the character of the area, and will not result in any unacceptable adverse impact on neighbouring properties. Considering all material planning issues and having regard to the totality of policies in the framework, the proposed development is sustainable when looking at its social, economic and environmental credentials that accords with the framework and the development plan as a whole. Officers therefore recommend that the application is granted subject to the recommended conditions. This concludes the officer presentation.
Great, thank you very much, Rebecca. We've got Mr. Alan Coleman here as the agent for the applicant for Tyler Parks Partnership. Hello, thank you. You've got 5 minutes. I'll indicate when you're about 15 seconds left, if that's okay. Thank you.
Thank you. Good afternoon, and thank you for your time today. Perhaps you'll be relieved to hear that I'm not going to repeat the points raised in your officer's report, but we would commend it as a very thorough and robust assessment of the issues raised by the application. Your officer's report addresses all the relevant issues raised by the application, and the recommendation to grant planning permission, subject to the recommended conditions, is fully endorsed. The site has the capacity to accommodate the proposed development in an acceptable manner, and, as demonstrated by the content of your officer's report, is deemed to be acceptable in all respects, and there are no material harm has been identified that outweighs the benefits of the scheme. Indeed, it is the professional opinion of your officers that the planning balance is firmly in favour of the proposal. In conclusion, the proposal is considered to be a wholly sustainable form of development in accordance with the aims and interests of the relevant policies of the adopted local plan and the NPPF. And we therefore respectfully submit that this proposal is entirely acceptable and we ask the committee to support your officer's recommendation and grant planning permission as recommended. Thank you.
Very succinct. Have we got any questions, please? If I start with Councillor Cross and then Councillor De Serra. Thank you.
Thank you, Chair. And thank you for coming and giving the report, very helpful. Some of the concerns raised have been relating to lighting, and I see there are conditions about exterior lighting. And with such a lot of the building having glazing as the facade, just wondering, what are the current procedures, or how is the interior lighting managed such that it does not, how is it currently managed so it does not illuminate outside terribly much? And is there any proposed change, given that there's going to be a little bit more of the building with glazing and lighting inside? Just wondering, is there anything that would help allay concerns or help address concerns raised about lighting levels? Yes, external lighting is controlled, but with there being so much glazing, is there anything about interior lighting? Thank you.
There's nothing specific with regard to the internal lighting. It's designed to satisfy the relevant British standards, and so any lighting would not be visible at this site boundary on Watery Lane, or indeed when viewed from the neighbouring garden areas, or indeed from their windows. And the lighting is obviously reduced at the end of trading hours.
Thank you. Yes, it was particularly about the nighttime lighting I was wondering.
Councillor De Serra, thank you.
Thank you. I just wanted to check, it is stated that no customer or staff parking places are going, but you're losing display spaces for vehicles for sale. Would it be true to say that all those vehicles that are currently outside are going to be moved inside, or are there going to be fewer vehicles inside once the thing is built?
There will be fewer vehicles inside, and I think one of the proposed ground floor plans showed, I think there was up to 2 internal display spaces.
Okay, yeah, I might have another one later.
Councillor Kinsley.
Thank you, Chair. I just wanted to follow up on that point, if I may. So you're saying in the report it says that staff won't be displaced to park outside the grounds. Can you kind of, what sort of reassurances can you give us about that? Where do staff currently park, and how can you be sure that they won't be squeezed and then pushed onto the road? Thank you.
The spaces that were displaced to accommodate the extension are specifically there at the front of the site for display vehicles only. Staff and customer parking is towards the rear of the site. If you come in off Bromyard Road, the central access way, and that's located towards the right-hand side rear of the site.
Councillor Ramos.
Sorry, Chair, it does work. It's me who doesn't work. The report says, obviously it talks about the expansion of the business, which is fair enough. But in the agent's response, Chair, on the bottom of page 24, it says that transporters are received and contained within the curtilage of the site. Now, that is not true. For some years, I represented this area. This was in my ward, and it's currently still in my division. And I get complaints about deliveries being on the road. And Bromyard Road, actually, although it's a main road, is narrow. So I get complaints about the deliveries. Now, if the business is going to expand, I'm concerned of how many more infractions are we going to get on the road with the deliveries, because it's a bigger business.
Yeah, so your question is, are deliveries going to increase because of the extension?
Correct.
Thank you.
I'll respond to that in 2 ways. VW Group do not undertake any deliveries on the roadside. They are all taking place within the site, and they can accommodate 2 trams side by side within the site itself. They accommodate either 10 petrol vehicles or 8 electric vehicles due to the difference in weight of the vehicles. The incidents that we're aware of roadside deliveries and displays are from the other display showrooms, Hyundai, Starting Motor, and it's nothing to do with VW.
Just for the record then, Chair, I must go back to my constituents who have complained and say that what they're giving me is incorrect information.
But I suppose your question was, are deliveries going to increase because of the extension?
And the answer to that is no, they will remain at the current level.
Thank you. I've got Councillor Kimberley now, please. Thank you.
Thank you, Chair. I'm going to do my usual thing and ask some very, very basic, very simple questions because I'm just trying to get my head around the logic, really. Presumably, the purpose of the extension is to expand the business, which by definition would imply an increase in the number of customers visiting potentially. I'm just coming at this from layman's terms. Presumably, you'd expect an increase in the number of customers visiting, and that could potentially lead to needing more staff in the future. This would generally imply there's going to be more pressure on the parking spaces rather than less. I note that in the response to the concern raised by Councillor Lamb, we've been told that the actual number of car parking spaces available to customers will not change, but we are still nonetheless talking about an expansion to the business, presumably with the aim of drawing more custom. I also note that there isn't a wealth of on-street parking in the area around this. Is there anything that you can say that would allay the understandable concerns people might have that this is going to lead to more demand on the existing static number of car parking spaces available to customers? Thank you.
Yes, certainly the extension itself is some 90 square metres, and it's actually a result of the VW side of the car sales business will be reducing to accommodate the Skoda side. So in that respect, you'll have only an additional, let's say, 2 internal cars being displayed for sale. There certainly won't be any increase in the number of employees as a result of the development, and therefore it's considered that there is sufficient capacity within the site to accommodate existing as well as future parking requirements.
Okay, so the purpose of the extension, can we explain what the difference is with the businesses and what's going on? Why, you want 2 more vehicles for one aspect of the business. Can you explain that a bit more? Thank you.
I think there was one of the ground floor plans where they actually had the actual zoning on it, green and red. So when you look at that, at the moment, the VW side occupies the whole of the car sales showroom. That will be reduced for VW side by approximately half the footprint, with the balance together with the small extension being wholly to accommodate Skoda vehicles, which is part of the VW group.
Thank you. Good afternoon, Mr. Colvin. As a planning expert yourself, you'll be aware that an additional planning application would be required if new signage were needed, given that a new company may come into the business. Is your client aware of that?
They have been advised accordingly, Councillor.
Great, thank you. Councillor Cross.
Thank you, Chair. Thank you. I noticed that the landscape officers suggested an additional planting of an additional tree, such as a field maple, on the east frontage. Just wondering, anything that you'd be open to, or your client would be open to?
It's certainly something that hasn't been presented to us as a requirement as part of the application. In terms of whether or not there's actually enough space to accommodate a semi-mature tree of that nature is something that we could possibly look at, but on the face of it, no, it's not part of the proposal.
Okay, thank you. We've got a condition for construction environmental management plan. So obviously people will be concerned about that as well. And it's got restrictions on timings. Are you planning to close the business whilst that happens, or are you going to do it at the same time? Thank you.
If I could just quickly confer with my client. client's confirmed it would be continuous, so it would carry on side by side.
Okay, so details of how everything will be kept safe will be as part of the management plan, which will then be seen by officers.
And also part of just general health and safety.
Yeah, exactly, and general health and safety. Okay, gosh. Okay, I think the other thing has been covered by Councillor Cross about lighting. I haven't got anything else. Anyone got any other, or should we let Mr. Common go? No, we're fine. Thank you very much. Right, have we got any comments or questions for Duncan, please? Thank you. Rebecca or Duncan? There we go. We've got two officers here. We don't have highways, of course. Sarah, get us going.
Okay, thank you, Chair. Right, well, it's a shame highways aren't here because my comment would be for them. So we do have a situation, and I can recognise it because I don't live in this part of the city, but I go through it quite a lot. Traffic, parking, all of and whenever these applications are looked at, as far as I can tell, it's always the same. The status quo is deemed to be acceptable, and anything added to that is what gets then determined. And if it's fundamentally broken to begin with, that is never taken into account. And I just want to put it on record once again that I think this is a very poor way to approach things. I know it won't be fixed by my saying that, but I just wanted to say so. Thank you.
Councillor Cross.
Thank you, Chair. Questions of a technical note about lighting. Whether it's within our gift to talk about the lighting plan and just so that the interior lighting at night doesn't overspill to outside, if that's something that is already covered within good practice guides like the Institute of Lighting Professionals, for example, or similar, if that's something that is within our gift today to discuss and consider adding as a condition in terms of lighting. So not just about control about the external lighting, but just in terms of overspill. Thank you.
I don't believe we can control the internal lighting as part of the planning process, unfortunately.
Councillor Reg.
Thank you, Chair. I noticed from Councillor Lamb's concerns that the deliveries and servicing, which has been mentioned already, is a concern for him. He says, without conditions restricting delivery hours and requiring careful management of vehicle movements. Is that within our gift? I'm not even sure. There's not much evidence as to how serious that problem is. So it's hard to tell from the comments. But if it is a serious problem, is there something we can do about it? Or is it not really within this application?
Yeah, so officers have set out at paragraph 7.20 of the report the response to that, which is basically that officers don't feel that controls in relation to deliveries or servicing would meet the tests for conditions under the NPPF in this case, because any condition needs to be necessary, which we don't feel that it would be in relation to this application. It needs to be relevant to the application, and in this case it's only for a small scale extension, which it's been said wouldn't result in any increase in deliveries. And it's not and it would be considered to be disproportionate in scope and impact. And yeah, I mean the proposal doesn't alter the established servicing arrangements. So that's officers' view on that.
Thank you, Chair. Just to supplement the advice that Rebecca's just provided, it might be helpful to imagine a scenario whereby there is a delivery to the site. Some of the vehicles are VWs and some are Skodas, and some are in relation to the extension and some are in relation to the existing building. There are no conditions on the existing building. It would be very difficult, extremely difficult, to try and enforce a condition and try to establish whether the delivery was in relation to what's before you this afternoon or what's in relation to the development that already exists. That's the predicament that we find ourselves in. The concern is very well understood. You do have a situation here where, both in writing and in the meeting earlier, the agent for the applicant has explained that they do. That's what they're telling you. They arrange for deliveries to be made within the curtilage of the premises, and they've suggested to you that where that may have not been the case, it relates to a different operator. Our advice is that there is very little we can do in relation to such a modest extension. Although this isn't directly in relation to the question that Councillor Rudge has asked, the concerns that some of you have raised about the loss of 7 spaces, but two spaces for display vehicles within the proposed extension, so that there is still a net loss. It strikes me that your concern is that there shouldn't be any loss of customer or staff parking on the site. And that actually, if there's any impact on the dealership's arrangements for the way that they manage and operate the site, that impact should be on the display of vehicles, not on the ability for staff to go onto site and park, customers to turn up with or without an appointment and park. And it just struck me that there might be a way forward that does meet all of the relevant tests for a planning condition. And that is, if you delegated approval to the chair and vice chair and myself to grant planning permission with the conditions that are currently in the agenda, but subject to, and I think this is the key, outside of this meeting, us establishing precisely how many existing staff spaces and how many existing customer spaces, and then in consultation with chair and vice chair, we include an additional condition that says those spaces shall be retained on the site for the lifetime of the development. That strikes me as a way of addressing very precisely the concern that has been raised about car parking. Thank you, Chair.
I think that's really helpful, because what we're talking about is like overspill and pressure, aren't we, coming from the loss of the spaces. And obviously staff and visitors, you know, is the priority. But if they're displaying within the building now, they don't, you know, I suppose the cars are cleaner if they're displayed in the building rather than outside, aren't they? You can make them shinier with the lights or whatever. Okay, I think that's, is everyone, yeah, I'm seeing some nods. That's welcome. Okay, we'll move on. I've got Councillor Round now, please. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you, Chair. I've got just 2 comments following on from what was just being said by the planning officer about meeting with yourself, Chair and Vice Chair, about the car parking spaces. Is it within the remit of that conversation to have a discussion about the number of accessible car parking spaces in terms of those with blue badges? You know, I personally find it a big frustration that we're limited in you know, what blue badges car parking spaces are available. Is that a possibility? That's my first question, and then I have another observation to make.
Through you, Chair. My advice is that although that goes beyond what may be reasonable and proportionate in relation to this very modest extension, I would have thought that the applicant would be willing to have a conversation with us about that, and that's something that we could try to secure voluntarily from them.
Thank you. That answers that question. And then my next sort of observation is, I think, having read the papers and heard the applicant's agent, I actually think I'm really pleased to see that a business is wanting to expand and survive in our city. Trading times in the country are incredibly hard, and you have to weigh up the issues that are before us and what is a planning matter. But, you know, a business is wanting to try and survive really in today's climate, and I think that ought to be commended, and we ought to be supporting the business to ensure that they can go ahead. From a planning perspective, you know, all been answered very clearly by officers in their report. It's an incredibly thorough report, which was lovely to read and see, because every possible question I could think of had been answered. So I'm willing to, if anybody, you know, I'm willing to propose that this be supported, this application.
Gosh, thank you, Councillor Round. We've got a proposal, but I've still got people to ask questions. So can we just park that for a minute and give some members who haven't spoken yet the chance to, if that's okay? So I've got Councillor Barnes, thank you.
Thank you. I didn't declare an interest because my house is a lot further along Bromyard Road and not near the garage. But it is a busy junction, Watery Lane and Bromyard Road, and I'm very reassured by Mr Coleman that the deliveries aren't to this particular business, because we do have a real problem of transporters with cars on parking up on the street, and then it causes real problems in that area, especially as we know that there'll be more development on the Mecco site recently. That is expanding with gyms and so forth at the moment, so that area is going to have even more traffic in the future. I'm reassured that there'll be adequate customer parking as the business increases, or there won't be a need for a problem on that. So I am satisfied with this application that we won't have too much downside on it, but I would like to state for the future applications near this site that this committee needs to consider that junction, and it's tight enough as it is, and if there is any extra, we're going to have a major problem. We already have a problem. The other thing to state is that there was a concern about travel. There's an excellent bus service, a 30 bus service parks outside this and that runs until 11 o'clock at night every day of the week, not till 11, but every day of the week we've got a really excellent service. So I think that's another thing that puts a positive on. So I'm happy to second this actually once it comes through.
Thank you, Councillor Barnes. That's very helpful and quite refreshing to have someone singing the praises of a bus route. It did make me think, actually, does the site have any cycle parking? Do we know? I don't know. Could we encourage oh, okay, great. Okay, because I think it's encouraging all modes of transport, isn't it, for people who are able to help everybody else as well. I have got Councillor Amos now, please. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you, Chair. I mean, I welcome the existence of listers. I support the expansion of listers. It's good to have a business thriving like this in the area. And frankly, I'm proud of it. It brings jobs and it brings business, and it's fantastic. It's just the consequences of the parking of this that has been there for some time. Now, if this amendment is actually saying it is a firm commitment, not a wishy-washy hope, it's a firm commitment that there will be no increase in customer parking or staff parking, then I could accept that, and I think that's very helpful. But that would need to be fairly firm, Chair, because I can assure you that my constituents know the difference between listers and the other garages. They really do. And I've had complaints, it's a matter of fact, and I'm not having that questioned. But also the consequences are that, and it is staff rather than customers, so with the consequences has been that we've put yellow lines down Boughton Avenue on a timed basis between 12 and 2, but there's, of course, the displacement effect, because these staff don't have anywhere else to park, to be fair to them. The displacement effect has now gone down at Bransford Road into Willis Place. We can't put yellow lines on Willis Place because it's private. So there is a problem, Chair, and we have to work on the assumption that there is a problem. So this is why I want that commitment on the amendment, that there will be no more. Not that there may not be, because there will be. Because it's quite clear that if you're going to expand a business, there are going to be more customers, there's going to be more staff, whatever anybody says. So if you could give that commitment, Chair, I'll happily go along with the generality of what other people are saying.
Yes, of course. I'm just going to have Duncan come in. There we go.
Thank you, Chair. I think I just need to provide some clarification because my suggestion earlier to establish how many existing car parking spaces there are on site at the moment and to attach a condition to ensure that this is the point that there's no reduction as a consequence of the extension. We don't want there to be less customer. I think a moment ago, Councillor Amos, you may have said that there aren't any more. I think you meant no less. We don't want to see a loss of staff or customer parking.
What I said, Chair, is that we don't want any more customer parking or staff parking in the side roads. We've got enough. I think the amendment is going to cover that, but I say I was seeking the assurance because I've been dealing with this problem for years and it's not going to go away when you expand the business, let's be honest. So that's why I want the assurance.
Yep, okay, thank you, Councillor Amos. Well, we're going to...
When you'd like me to, I can just reiterate that amended recommendation.
Yeah, we'll go through the amended recommendation before the vote. Thank you. Councillor Kimberley, thank you.
Thank you. It's not to ask for anything else to be added to conditions or anything like that, but I was going to suggest if there are conversations being had about voluntary additions or changes that the applicant could make, I'd like to draw to their attention the excellent work done by our City Council landscape officer and just encourage them to have a second look at that if that's possible, because it would be nice, even if there isn't much scope for massive biodiversity increase, just adding the field maple as suggested seems like a sensible small step and a show of goodwill to the residents around and in the vicinity of the area. Otherwise, I mean, given how relatively small the extension actually is in proportion to the rest of the business, I don't really see any difficulty with supporting this. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you, Councillor Kimberley. Yeah, I agree. You know, if this was a bigger extension or even a new business, I think we'd be in a different place, asking lots of things. You know, solar PV, I don't know what else, lots of stuff, you know, suds, who knows. Anyway, we're not there. So we've had a proposal and a seconder. Yeah, we'll just have Duncan go through the amended proposer, and then if you're both still happy to be the proposer and seconder, we'll then move to a vote. Thank you.
Thank you, Chair. So the decision would be to delegate authority to grant planning permission with conditions as set out in your agenda papers in consultation with the Chair and Vice Chair of this committee, subject to establishing the existing number of staff and customer spaces, and then an additional condition to retain those spaces for the lifetime of this development, and then separately to discuss with the applicant, and I think the key word is explore, the opportunity to include blue badge visitor spaces, cycle parking and soft landscaping. Thank you, Chair.
Are you happy with that, Councillor Round?
Yes, happy to propose it.
Councillor Barnes? Councillor Amos?
Thanks, Joe. Can I just clarify on that? I mean, it sounds okay. In finding out how many staff spaces there are and customer spaces, could you, whilst doing that, it would obviously make sense finding out how many staff spaces there are in relation to the number of staff, because of course that gap is met by the parking in the side roads causing real problems. That's the point. We might find out there are 20 spaces, I don't know, but then there's 40, 50 staff. So it will be helpful to have that information at the same time, Chair.
Through you, Chair, the number of employees or staff will fluctuate from time to time. All that this amendment is suggesting is that as part of a snapshot in time, that snapshot in time being the point at which you're making a decision on this application, we establish the existing number of spaces and we ensure that there is no loss as a consequence of this proposal, nothing more, nothing less. Thank you, Chair.
Okay. Okay, so based on that amendment and the proposal from Councillor Round, seconded by Councillor Barnes, can I please see all hands in favour? Okay, that's unanimous. Thank you. So that is carried. We'll now move to agenda item 9. This is 4 Hoskins Avenue, and we've got a presentation from Ros. We'll just give her a second to get set up. Thank you.
That would link the garage to the main dwelling. The works would create a ground floor lobby and WC and bring the garage into use as habitable space. For clarity, members will note that the submitted plans also show a single-storey rear extension and a rear dormer. These 2 elements, however, fall within permitted development limits and do not form part of this application. Only the garage conversion and the front link extension require express planning permission. The site is located within a modern residential estate east of Worcester City Centre. The property is detached 2-storey brick dwelling with a double garage positioned forward of the main building. The area has a uniform suburban character with a similarly designed dwellings, consistent building materials and limited street parking due to double yellow lines along Hoskins Avenue. The proposed link extension would be modest in scale and positioned beneath a lean-to roof that aligns with the existing eaves. Materials would match the host dwelling. The intention is to visually integrate the detached garage with the main house, creating a more cohesive facade. The design is considered sympathetic to the established character of the Hoskins Avenue and compliant with SWDP 21 and of the South Worcestershire Design Guide. The extension remains single-storey and projects only marginally forward of the existing building line. No side-face windows are proposed and the works are sited away from boundaries. Given the modest height and the absence of direct overlooking, the scheme would not materially harm a neighbouring privacy, outlook or light levels. Highway and parking considerations. Although the proposal does not increase the number of bedrooms within the host dwelling, the conversion of the garage would result in the loss of one on-street parking space. To ensure compliance with the adopted parking standards, officers requested a proposed site plan demonstrating that adequate off-street parking would be provided. A revised plan has since been submitted showing space for 3 vehicles to park within the existing driveway. This route meets the requirements of the Streetscape Design Guide for the property of 3 to 4 bedrooms. On this basis, and with the previously proposed new access now omitted, the Highway Authority has confirmed it has no objection to the scheme. The Council's Landscape Officer raised no objection but recommended that a licensed backed work remain on call during works as a precautionary measure, which is reflected in the informative attached to the recommendation. Having assessed the design, amenity and highway considerations, the proposal is judged to represent a proportionate and well-integrated form of domestic alteration. The scheme is significantly reduced in scale compared to the previously refused application and now addresses former concerns regarding overdevelopment and highway safety. The resulting development would respect the character of the dwelling and wider landscape, safeguard neighbouring amenity and maintain highway safety. The proposal therefore accords with policies SWDP 4 and SWDP 21 of the South Worcestershire Development Plan, the South Worcestershire Design Guide and the relevant provisions of the National Planning Policy Framework. Accordingly, approval is recommended subject to conditions set out in section 9 of the report.
Okay, thank you very much, Ros. We have got Mr. Umar Gaffer here, who is the applicant. You've got 5 minutes. Thank you.
Good afternoon, everyone. To be honest, I don't intend on speaking for long. It's just, I just wanted to, sort of in support of my application, just wanted to mention that several neighbouring properties have also submitted similar planning applications in recent years, and they were approved without objections. Really, my request today is for my application to be assessed on its own merits in the same fair and consistent manner as others in the area have been. I want to improve my home in a reasonable way, just as many of my neighbours have already been permitted to do so. Of course, as you've heard, it's already been sort of the planning officer and sort of already approved, and so I hope you will do so too. That's it, and I'm happy to take any questions, really.
Okay, thank you very much. Has anyone got any questions for the... oh yeah, Councillor Amos, if you start off. Thank you.
Thank you, Chair. Mr Guffaw, I'm a bit confused because it seems that you want an office, correct me if I'm wrong, you want an office with an ensuite and another room with a very large dormer window, and you want 2 more car parking spaces. Now, if I were being a cynical person, I would say actually what you really want is you want 2 more bedrooms, but this is the best way to get them. And so I'm very concerned about this because obviously if these are bedrooms in reality, because once you've got the planning permission, then we can't go in and see what you're doing with the rooms, and you know that. So therefore, the 2 cars will be there, and we've already seen in the report that is not a 2-car space available. So it would have a knock-on effect on the parking if these are used as bedrooms.
Sorry. Yeah, just for my profession, I work from home, so that is intended to be an office. I want to be able to segregate home from work, and so the garage is just used for the office. I mean, I live there by myself, so there's no intention of it being used for further residence or anything like this. Yeah.
Thank you. Any other questions? Councillor Rudge?
2 questions.
Yep.
First of all, are you losing any garden space in the process of this development?
There's a decking area which will be removed, so there'll be slightly, it'll be pushed, the garden will be pushed back slightly, but it's not a significant amount. There's still sufficient gardening in the back, obviously. Yeah, and from the front there's no garden anywhere other than the sort of the parking area.
Yeah, can we just clarify that question, because the garden I think is to do with the permitted development?
Yes, the matters for discussion is only the version and the link extension. So the rear extension is permitted development, it's not part of this application. So there will be no, the link extension and the garage conversion doesn't create any loss in amenity space.
Thank you. My second question is, can you just explain what you've changed from the original application?
Not much, to be honest, other than the garage conversion other than the garage conversion and the loft conversion. And that's it, very much. I mean, there's a slight addition to the side, but that's very much just to allow access from the main house into the garage, because there's no direct access, and that's it, very much. Yeah.
I do have a third question, Chair, if that's
Yeah.
right. And you're designed to have, was it 2 more parking spaces?
Yes.
The logic behind that, I appreciate that's been rejected, but...
Oh, it was...
Yeah, so the parking spaces on the side is, again, not part of this application. It's been omitted from the proposals on highways and suggestions.
I've got Councillor Kinsley, please. Thank you.
Thank you, Chair. I was going to ask about parking spaces as well. Sorry to dwell on that one. But could you just, I think I heard from the report that there needs to be 3 car parking spaces. Is that correct? Can you just outline where you see those 3? Obviously, there's a space in front of the garage. Can you just describe to me how you expect the orientation of, if you had 3 cars that needed to be parked off that road, how would they be fitted in?
So basically, I mean, currently I do utilise, there are when I have guests, so where there's three, we can easily sort of afford to park 3 cars. So one in front, 2 in front of the garage, and then 1 directly on the side. So actually, it's on the planning. If you look at the plan itself, you can actually see the Ross. I don't know if you can bring up the plan again, but it will be it's quite clear on there. I think it was one of the further earlier pictures.
No. So back again. I think it's like a couple more, and again another one. That's it. Parking.
Yeah. No worries. Thank you.
Okay, do I have any other questions? No? Okay, thank you very much for coming. You're free to step back.
Thank you.
Thank you. Has anyone got any comments or questions for officers, please? Councillor Moss.
Thank you, Chair. Can I just get this parking situation clarified, please? Because the application, as I understand it, was based on having 2 more car parking spaces. It wasn't. So all the comments I've seen that the residents have sent in about the problems with extra parking because of the BT cabinet or something being there. I mean, if you know, if it's not talking about bedrooms, I don't know why there's 2 extra car parking spaces required anyway. But I'd just like to clarify what the situation is. How many cars can you reasonably and properly, according to the Streetscape Design Guide, park on the space that would then be available?
So the application originally included parking on the side of the premises as well. But on Highways advice, this wouldn't have been supported, so it was removed from the application. It's not needed anyway. They only need 3 parking spaces, which can fit comfortably at the front of the premises.
Well, I think I understand that, but if it's a 6-bedroom house, you need more than, how many parking spaces would you need?
It's only a 4-bedroom house.
Allegedly, but I'm not convinced about what the proposal is for, because if I could ask the officer this, Chair, if the application is for what it says it is and it's passed, how then does anybody ever know that those rooms are changed to bedrooms, which obviously would alter the parking situation? Be more people living there, be more cars there. That's a consequence of it.
Through you, Chair, initially we may not be aware, and I appreciate that's why you're asking the question. So you have the advice from the Highway Authority within the published report, and that advice is that what is currently proposed with the 3 parking spaces as per the drawing and the slide that you've just seen is acceptable in their professional view. Your officers have adopted a similar view and are quite clearly recommending approval based on the floor plan that is also part of the application. If you as a committee feel differently about that, then you'll give to arrive at a different decision to the one that's being recommended to you. My only advice really at this point in your debate can be that if you do decide that you're not able to support the application, then we just need to think about what evidential basis would be put forward for supporting a refusal of the application. Thank you, Chair.
Yeah, Duncan, I don't know. Thing is, we've had the applicant come, thank you very much for coming, who has categorically said, I work from home, I need a home office. So I don't know what more we can have really from someone's assurance that they need a home office and they're not converting a garage to a bedroom. Can I have Councillor Round now, please?
Yeah, thank you, Chair. My mind just went completely blank then. I was just thinking that I hear what all the concerns are, but at the end of the day, if you go down this particular road, there have been many other houses that have been substantially extended, way bigger than what the applicant is proposing. We have to face value what the applicant is proposing. The report is quite clear The report has satisfied our concerns about the highways issues. And as I said, the applicant, if we refuse this application, he's quite within his rights to go to appeal. And I would, you know, I'm not a planning expert, but at the end of the day, given that there's a precedent in other houses along that road, he's highly likely to be successful on appeal, and I'm worried about costs against. That's my view.
Thank you, Councillor Round. I've got Councillor Cross, please. Thank you.
Thank you, Chair. Yes, initially when I was looking through the papers online for this, I was a bit concerned about the number of neighbour objections, but then when you look back and see the dates, my understanding is that, I mean, it has been clarified that the single-storey rear extension and the rear dormer fall within permitted development parameters, so they're not part of this decision today. So we are looking purely at the link and at the garage conversion, and that there is parking provision sufficient there. So I think more my understanding is, and I hope it's correct, please correct me if I'm wrong, that basically a lot of the neighbours' concerns about overlooking, etc., are no longer, or they are not part of what we are looking at today. You know, they're talking about other elements of the proposal which are under permitted development. Is that a correct understanding?
Yes, I agree that a lot of the overlooking is from the rear dormer, which is permitted development and not something that we're deciding on today.
Through you, Chair. The points that are being raised about this are fully understood by your officer team. I think a couple of points to just bear in mind. A room within a house, be that a dining room or any other room, can be changed to a bedroom without requiring planning permission. As a point of law, that's not development. I think what you have to balance, and that's the key word, is if the applicant that's here sitting with you today occupies this dwelling in accordance with this floor plan, it doesn't mean that at some point in the future somebody else might be occupying the dwelling with a family with young children below the age of 17 who don't have cars, or teenage children older than 17 that do have cars. But is that really any different to what happens across the city generally? In some cases, yes. In some cases, no. You're having to judge this, as the applicant asked you to earlier, on its merits. And what you find acceptable in one location might not be acceptable in another. Your officers have balanced all of those considerations and presented the report to you today with a recommendation for approval. And we feel that that's the appropriate recommendation in this case. It's simply for you to undertake the same balancing exercise and see whether you come to the same conclusion or not. I can't really advise you any further than that. Thank you, Chair.
Yeah, can I just clarify something then, Duncan? So this application is for it says for the conversion of the existing garage. It doesn't say into what as part of it, does it? And the condition that we've got is development seeks permission for the conversion of the existing garage and the erection of a single storey linking the garage to the host dwelling. So this garage, what we're saying is it can't be a bedroom, but it could be a games room, it could be a playroom, it could be an office, it could be something that isn't a bedroom. Is that basically what we're saying?
Not exactly. What the application is proposing is to convert the garage for the storage of vehicles or other possessions that the property owner wants to store there to habitable accommodation. Beyond that, the point I was trying to make earlier, but probably not very well, was that beyond the point of granting planning permission, there is a limit to the extent that the local planning authority can oversee and monitor those changes. Hence my reference to one family having different requirements to another. So have some regard for what the applicant is put forward in terms of the way they intend to use the dwelling. Make a decision on that basis, but also have regard to all the potential scenarios into the future that would then fall beyond any planning consideration. But consider this application on its merits in the context of where this is in the overall city. Thank you.
Yeah. Sorry, Duncan, I just want to get it very clear. So we couldn't have a condition where we said, you can put whatever you like in here, but not a bedroom. You'd have to come back to committee to make it a bedroom.
Essentially, it's a case of either accepting what is in front of you or not at all.
Okay, thank you. I think that's really helpful. I've got Councillor Kimberley. Thank you.
Thank you, Chair. I've been listening to the discussion carefully. I think the job of Planning Committee is to consider the worthiness of the applications before us, not to act as a police force to govern every aspect of what goes on within our neighbours' homes. There are 8 objections logged. Having read through them, I am struggling to match up the facts of the case to the strength of feeling. I am worried, Chair, that our committee risks being used as a blunt instrument to litigate grudges within the neighbourhood. I can see why the earlier application might not have made it through. The earlier application was talking about adding a new road access to the front of the property. Given the layout of the roads around Hoskins Avenue, this wouldn't have worked. There isn't the visibility for it. It would have been a safety risk. But that's not the application that's in front of us today, and I'm worried that strong feelings that might have been carried over from previous applications are being applied to this one, and I think that's distinctly unhelpful to all of us. I really struggle to see how this is an objectionable proposal. At the end of the day, it is taking a less useful garage space, it is turning it into a more useful living space. What the resident chooses to use that for is really his business at that stage. I don't think this is a drastic change in the use of the property. We're not talking about doubling the size of it or anything ridiculous like that. I think it's in the same realm as the development we've already considered earlier this evening, where we talked about a change which is fundamentally very small relative to the size of the existing development. So I'd be very happy to support this. If it would be helpful, I offer to propose it when the time comes. Thank you.
Great, thank you, Councillor Kimberley. And I think you're absolutely right. We're very fortunate that we've got officers who refused the earlier application, which for lots of reasons, including overdevelopment. And yeah, we do have to consider what we have before us. Absolutely. Councillor De Serra.
Thank you, Chair. Yes, I agree with what my colleague has said. Many garages that were built in houses at this time are no longer even useful for cars because they're much smaller than most cars are today, and you could get in, you couldn't get out. So if there's a proposal to make this a space now, attach it to the home, make it useful, absolutely support it, and I completely agree, it's none of our business what room that actually is.
Thank you, Councillor De Serra. I've got Councillor Kinsley.
Thank you. Yeah, I'm intrigued by item 8.2 on the report that says, and I'm just wondering if there can be any further elaboration on this, just to give us a bit more sort of context. It sounds as though garage conversions normally would be development rights, but in the original development, it was stipulated that they would not be given automatic rights. And I'm curious, I don't know if your office can elaborate on why that is, and also the extent to which in other dwellings in this area, garages have since been converted. So do they know what the original sort of thinking was behind that, and to what extent has it been superseded in any case? Thank you.
I'm can't be sure, but I think it's because it's restricted parking, because there's it's double yellow lines all the way around it, so they didn't want the garage being used for habitable space and then displacement parking on the highway. But this application does show that it's got adequate off-street parking, taking into account the garage use as a habitable space.
Councillor Barnes.
Thank you. I'd like clarification. Obviously, at the moment, there's permission for 3 cars, but originally 6 were mentioned in some of the other paperwork. If they put more cars in the area that hasn't been approved, would that be something that enforcement would pick up? And the second one is, I know that if at some point in the future, not necessarily this resident, goes for HMO status, for example, or Airbnb status, obviously they'd have to come back to us anyway.
Yes, so if they wanted to convert it into a HMO, it would need planning permission because we've got the Article 4 agreement in Worcester. The parking, sorry, what was the question about the parking? If they parked on the
Bits as around the building where the box is, for example, that you could technically pull a car into. If somebody was using that regularly as an extra parking space, what would be the implications?
Duncan, can you help with that one?
Chair, it's very difficult to comment on something that might or might not happen, and where it's not fact specific, it would be difficult to advise on whether it would be a breach of planning control or not. But rest assured, if something was reported to us, we would investigate in the same way that we do all alleged breaches of planning control, and we'd have to come to a conclusion then. I don't think that's specifically something we could advise on today.
Councillor Agar.
Thank you, Chair. In relation to Mr. Rogers' clarifications, I would only say, really, that I don't have a crystal ball. I don't think any of us have, and even if we did, it wouldn't make a difference, because we're looking at an application as it stands. The main area, the larger of the areas of in this application, which we're making a decision about, is the garage. And clearly, that's not overdevelopment in any sense of the word. It can't be. I mean, it's no bigger than it is. And we've only got that little front extension otherwise. So I think actually it's really a bit of a no-brainer. We can't control what happens in this particular space in the future. As we've heard, an HMO would require an additional application to us. So that's not really a consideration here. What we need to do is decide whether or not we can approve the conversion of the garage and this tiny front extension. And from my point of view, I think I can. Thank you. I'll second.
Thank you, Councillor Agar. Councillor Rhodes, you've got something else to raise?
Thank you, Chair. Yes, I don't pretend to fully understand all of the concerns raised by the Parish Council, but I would like to clarify that I don't think they're in any way emotional. They're just trying, as far as I understand, to seek some clarification about why the first refusal took place. What was the reason behind the first refusal, and what's different about this application? So it's trying to understand the technicalities rather than, you know, have any sort of other agenda. And in particular, the sort of, you know, the dormer window and the rear extension have not been included in this planning application, but they were there originally, and we're not, because they're going to be built and they are part of the overall development, it's not clear, I think, to the Parish Council why this isn't still considered to be overdevelopment.
So the first application which was refused was for a first storey on the garage. So the garage would have been 2 storeys. The link extension, a large box dormer on the back which would require planning permission, and the rear single storey extension and the parking on the side. So that was what was refused by us. Then the next application that was submitted included the link extension and the garage conversion. On the plans it did have the dormer and the single storey rear extension, and also the parking area at the side. So the parking area at the side was removed on Highways advice, as it wouldn't be supported, and the other 2 are classed as permitted development, so therefore it's not part of on the description of the proposal, so they're not seeking planning permission for this. So the plans are likely to be also used for building regs, So they've got the same set of plans, which could be why that the dormer and the rear extension is on there.
So for committee, they could have actually just done the existing building with just the garage and the link, with no reference to anything else, because it's permitted development. Okay. Does that help, Councillor Reg?
It does. It's just that when you look at the overall site of the new build, if you like, with all these things taking place, the dormer and the rear extensions of the overall development, even though it's deemed to be permitted development, and I know I'm getting into technical deep water here, and already you can see I'm feeling a little bit unsteady in my ship, but I'll plough on. I'm not mixing my metaphors. It's the overall massing, I think, that's the concern from the parish council planning people, because, okay, it's permitted development, but when it was on the original, it's still in this one, and it's trying to understand how you kind of can dismiss that when it is part of the overall massing of the whole development.
Through you, Chair. Councillor Reg, I understand the point you're making, and it is a difficult one. I think the only advice that we can provide on this particular point is the applicant could have not included those two elements. From my perspective, I think they should be commended for including them, because it shows a level of openness about the scheme that they want to complete, so that you can see it in its entirety. But on the flip side, it's difficult when you're being advised by your officers that only look at these elements, try to ignore those elements. That's also not very helpful. But I think on balance, it's better to see the scheme in its entirety and just understand what is in the applicant's mind in terms of their overall ambitions for the property. But you do have to just close one eye and imagine you can't see the permitted development elements when you're making a decision on the planning application this afternoon. It's as simple as that.
And I think the presentation was very clear where you had circled red, ignore me, other bit, look at me. So I don't think you could have done more, to be honest. I've got Councillor Round, thank you.
Yes, Chair, I'm not sure if you've got any other questions coming through. I have to be honest, I'm struggling to understand the level of debate on this. I'm really, really struggling, because at the end of the day, I think we're making a bit of a mountain out of a molehill here. You know, it is what it is. Officer's report is quite clear. It complies with the planning law as it is. Officers are recommending approval. It's us to debate it. We've debated it to the end of the world. And I just think we need to move on to the vote, because we're going to be here until midnight. Otherwise, over a simple conversion of a garage and a tiny slither of a joining up of the garage and the house. Yeah. I mean, we are not building a great big, huge, you know, property here. It is a garage conversion, which has taken place 1,000 times over this city. And I think this is a bit of a waste of this committee's time debating this like this.
Thank you, Councillor Rand. I do think it's probably because we did have the initial application, which generated lots of negativity, that it's important that people feel heard. But we have got a proposer and a seconder on the table. I haven't had any suggestions for any amendments to conditions. Councillor Kinsley. Yeah, go. This is your last chance to.
Just a thought in terms of what space there is and when the issue is about when the building is going on. There'll be a temptation to put all the building work, because there'll be substantial disruption. I don't know whether we can condition maybe the use of the side area, or to make sure that some parking is retained, something like that, so that it minimise the disruption to neighbouring people while the construction of the building. That's all, if it's possible.
Chair, it would feel a little bit disproportionate, but we could attach a condition requiring a construction environmental management plan, but make it clear to the applicant that what we're expecting is something that is relatively light touch.
Councillor Cross?
Yes, I would support that, particularly from a highways perspective, so that there is minimal disruption during unloading, etc. Anything that can be done in terms of timing, but happy for that to be delegated between chair and.
So is your concern that we're going to have some delivery vehicles parking on the double yellows on the corner or something. Is that what you're talking about?
Yes, Chair. That site does suffer from particular. There are regular issues about overspill parking and fly parking in the area. So it is one characteristic of this location, separate from others, because of its proximity to the hospital potentially.
Yeah. So we're thinking that double yellows will be enforced as they are.
The condition to a vote.
What kind of condition would we put?
A construct an environmental management plan, but we'd just make it clear to the applicant.
It seems a bit. Yeah, I think we've got Councillor Kimberley as proposer and Councillor Agar as seconder. Are you happy with a condition like that? No? I just have to ask.
Chair,
I have to ask, yeah.
I proposed the original application as we had it and as it was before us. I would not be comfortable proposing the amendment. I think that it is wildly disproportionate to the application in front of us. And I just propose the application as we had it in front of us. Thank you.
Agar, you're happy with that as well?
I'm happy with Councillor Kimberley's position, yes.
Okay, so based on that, I'm not really seeing support for an additional condition because it's got to be proportionate to the application. So therefore, I think we're ready to vote. Yes. Can I see a show of hands in favour? Thank you. Yeah. Votes against, please. And abstentions. Thank you. That is carried. We'll now go to agenda have, let's see, the time is 38. Can you come back at 45, please? So that's 1:45. Back to Planning Committee. We're now moving to agenda item 10. This is 6 Whittington Road, and we have Duncan doing the presentation because Paul Round, unfortunately, is poorly. So thank you, Duncan, for coming.
Thank you, Chair. So the application before you this afternoon is a full planning application seeking planning permission to demolish the existing detached dwelling at 6 Whittington Road and replace it with a contemporary designed new dwelling. The application also includes changes within the property's curtilage, such as reconfiguring the front parking area and creating terraced levels to formalise the rear garden. Before I go further, I would like to just make members aware that earlier this week I received an email from the neighbour at 5 Whittington Gate confirming that he withdraws all of his previously stated objections. So although that communication has been received as a matter of fact, we have asked the neighbour to confirm that more formally. For whatever reason, he hasn't been able to do that, but the applicant's agent has provided an extract from an email they received and put that into a letter, and that has now been published on the council's website. So you can be confident in terms of the status of that communication. Nevertheless, the application is on your agenda and is presented to you this afternoon for determination. So, the slide before you at the moment is the site location plan with the site edged red. You will see a very lengthy domestic curtilage fronting onto Whittington Road, but with the existing dwelling set quite far back from the road frontage, and then the rear garden which tapers away on this slide in a downward or southerly direction. Looking at the slide in front of you, to the right hand side you have 8 Whittington Road, 6 Whittington Road, the application site, and then to the left 5 Whittington Gate, which is accessed off a private drive. Okay. So the next slide is the existing house that sits in the centre of the large plot. While the front garden and driveway are relatively flat, the land to the rear slopes steeply downwards to the south, and for those of you that were able to attend the site visit earlier today, you'll have seen those levels firsthand. Okay. So this slide is the proposed site plan. It's important to stress that this is showing the roof plan with its overhangs. Under the proposal, the immediate area to the south of the new dwelling would be retained as garden space, whilst the fullest southern section of the site would be allowed to naturalise as a biodiversity area. The slide here, just for context, the existing elevations, the existing dwelling. It's considered that this dwelling holds limited architectural merit, and again, you that had the benefit of a site visit earlier today, you have seen that not only is the property quite dated, it includes a series of different levels that could be said to compromise modern day living. Here then are the proposed elevations, the proposed replacement dwelling adopting a contemporary design characterised by strong linear forms, clean lines and a generous amount of glazing. Okay. What we have next are street scene drawings. At the Council's request, the applicant's agent has drawings to further explain the design narrative, to help officers and yourselves understand how the new dwelling will sit within the plot, excuse me, and within its surroundings, and to show its relationship with the neighbouring properties. Okay, I'll just pause there for a moment. And again. Okay, and what you have here on the slide is at the top the existing dwelling, at the bottom the artist's impression rear elevation, again showing the proposed dwelling and its surroundings, the sloping rear gardens to the application site and the neighbouring property at Whittington Gate. Okay. Okay. What we have now is a photograph of the rear of the application site and neighbouring property. During the application process, when it's been considered by your officers, concerns were raised regarding overlooking and potential loss of privacy for the neighbouring property at 5 Whittington Gate. A considerable level of assessment has been undertaken, and your officers are satisfied that the relationship that would exist between the proposed dwelling and the neighbouring dwellings, not just 5 Whittington Gate, but in particular 5 Whittington Gate, would be acceptable. And the proposed dwelling includes a number of physical measures to ensure that that relationship is acceptable from the point at which the dwelling is completed, but also into the future. Okay, so what we have is a green roof area, an area to the terrace that includes soft planting and raised planters. Those planters are an integral part of the design of the dwelling. They're not movable like you and I might move plant pots around our garden. And this is to ensure that there is a degree of privacy on both sides of the occupiers of the new dwelling and the neighbour continuing to use their terrace area to the rear of their property. The principle really is that for those occupying the proposed dwelling, rather than being able to walk right up to the edge of a balcony or a terrace and potentially lean over a balustrading, the planters mean that you can't quite make it that far, and that views that you enjoy are from a position set slightly back onto the terrace or balcony area. Okay. There's also a vertical privacy screen, again, to just protect those angles of view. Okay. So some photographs now, a photograph of the existing dwelling and the driveway up to the dwelling off Whittington Road. The large tree to the right is the tree protected by the Tree Preservation Order. A view from the back garden of the, in the application site, looking back at the existing dwelling. Another photograph showing both a rear dormer but also side windows that don't form part of the proposed dwelling, and those existing views towards the neighbouring property would disappear. They would no longer exist. A photograph taken from slightly further down the rear garden, again so that you can see the existing dwelling in context with the neighbouring property to the left. And slightly closer up. You'll note the hedgerow in between the two properties. There are actually two hedgerow boundaries between the property and a fence, and on the neighbour's side is the oil pipeline. This proposal respects the easement and separation required and distance away from that pipeline. And you'll note in the report reference to the response received from Fisher German, who are the agents acting on behalf of the oil pipeline and the organisation that seeks to ensure that the pipeline is safeguarded. Okay, and this shows on the neighbour's side, so not the application side, The loose gravel area is basically where this oil pipeline runs down the side of that property. Okay, and I think what I'm going to do is just, bear with me a second, okay. So, as I mentioned earlier, your officers consider this an appropriate design and scale of development for this site, an appropriate design for a replacement dwelling that appropriately addresses issues in terms of impact on the neighbours' amenity, highway safety, design, drainage and all other technical considerations. Your officers are satisfied that this proposal is in accordance with relevant local and national planning policy that's not outweighed by any other material considerations, and the recommendation is for approval with conditions. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you, Duncan. We've now got representation from Nicola Inchbald from Inchbald Planning, who's the agent for the applicant, and we've got Ed, I hope I said this right, is it Musu, sorry, who is the architect. Thank you. You've got 5 minutes. Thank you.
Thank you, Chair, and thank you for the members who were able to come to the site visit this morning. For those who weren't, my name's Nicola Inchbald and I'm here today with Eduardo Musso, the architect, to speak in support of the application. May I start with an apology? As some of you may be aware, the applicants are both senior cancer consultants at Worcester Royal Hospital. They both have cancer clinics this afternoon, and I'm sure you understand that they wouldn't want to cancel very important appointments with their patients. It's our clients' dearest wish to build their own sustainable home, and you can imagine their delight when this property near to the hospital came up. Knowing the complexities of planning and development, they appointed an expert team and entered into early engagement with the officers through a pre-application inquiry. This established officer support for the principle of the scheme and set clear parameters for the design of the new house in terms of height, mass, building line and distances from the boundaries, etc. Based on this positive feedback, the applicants proceeded to the phase 2, a planning application, which is today before you for approval. And this confirms that there are no policy or technical objections to the scheme from landscape, highways, archaeology or drainage, or any other statutory consultee. As this will be their home and wanting to be good neighbours, our clients approached their neighbours to discuss the proposals. You'll have seen the letters of support for the scheme, notably from Mr. Bird at number 8, immediately to the east of the property, who thanks the applicants for their open, transparent and genuinely constructive approach. As Duncan's confirmed, I'm pleased to confirm that as of last Monday, the neighbour at 5 Whittington Gate has withdrawn his objections. And I have to thank the officers for working hard with the applicants on this to overcome those objections and gain his support. So those lengthy discussions have involved a separate site visit and meetings between the neighbour and the Director of Planning, and the application has been modified at their request to enhance privacy. However, it is for you, as the Planning Committee, to determine the application. But I believe that you can gain substantive reassurance that this application has been properly and professionally scrutinised by your planning team, involving a 360-degree review together with Duncan, the Head of Planning and Economic Development. So the recommendation in front of you comes with the professional opinion of 4 experienced planning officers. I'm now going to hand over to Ed for him to expand on the design principles of the scheme and the care that the applicants have taken to reduce any potential impact on neighbouring amenity. Thank you.
Thanks, Nikki. Chair, members of the committee, thank you for the opportunity to speak. My name is Eduardo Musu and I'm the architect for this proposal. This scheme has been shaped by 3 core principles: high quality design, protection of neighbouring amenity and genuine sustainability. First on design, the existing property is of low architectural merits and heavily altered over time. Our proposal replaces it with a carefully considered contemporary home positioned within the same broad footprint, respecting the scale and openness of the plot. The design breaks down mass through a split roof form, high-level glazing and a refined material palette. Although contemporary, the scheme's sensitive. The building steps away from both side boundaries, maintaining openness and character of a detached dwelling. Second and most important, we have taken exceptional care to protect neighbouring amenity. Every concern raised by neighbours has been reviewed, modelled and addressed through design refinements. Verified daylight and sunlight assessments show that all neighbouring windows continue to receive compliant levels of light with no adverse impact. To prevent overlooking, all side-facing windows are obscure glazed, and we have introduced robust privacy measures, including a 1.8 metre opaque privacy screen to the western terrace, inset first-floor balconies with full-height screening, and raised planters preventing direct views into neighbouring private spaces. These measures ensure no acceptable overlooking, loss of privacy, loss of light, or overbearing impact. Thirdly, sustainability is integral to the proposal. The home incorporates a fully integrated photovoltaic roof, air source heat pumps, MVHR system, green roofs, rainwater harvesting, wildlife habitats, and extensive landscape enhancements, including a dedicated biodiversity area. The development therefore delivers environmental performance far exceeding that of a typical replacement dwelling. Chair and members, this is a carefully designed policy compliant and environmentally responsible home that replaces an outdated building with one of a significantly higher quality. Every aspect from light modelling, privacy, materials has been refined through collaboration with the planning officers. For these reasons, we respectfully ask you to support the officer's recommendation for approval. Thank you.
Thank you. You were bang on. 4 minutes, 58 seconds.
Kept an eye on it.
Well practiced. Thank you. That's very good. Well practiced. Can I have questions from members, please? Councillor Kinsley.
Thank you, Chair. Thank you for that, and thank you for the site visit earlier on today. It was very interesting just to see the site. I wanted to ask a little bit more about the SUDS report that's been submitted. I wondered if you could just expand on that a little more, particularly in light of the comment from the Land Drainage Partnership about the pumped solution not being the best. So whether you could just give a bit more information on that, please. Thank you.
Yes, of course. Following that concern about the pump solution, our clients appointed a second expert on drainage, and it's a gravity-fed scheme going out to the Whittington Road where there are adopted drains. So all drainage goes out to the front, and it's got a larger attenuation tank, which is part of the rainwater harvesting, which also waters the garden. So it's as much as possible is retained on the site, and then it's gravity fed down to the adopted drain.
Correct. Yeah,
yes.
that's absolutely right. Yeah.
Thank you for that, because I was wondering about the extent to which the water off the roof collected and directed to the garden, but there's an integral design for that by the sound of it.
Ed will expand on that now.
Yeah, absolutely. So it's part of a whole irrigation system for the entire garden. The permanent planter, as we're talking about, so really the whole thing should have a life cycle that keeps returning. Yeah.
I've got Councillor Agar. Thank you.
Thank you. Well, this is a public meeting and we're on YouTube, so not really for the benefit of members, because I think most of us at the site visit know what we think. But for the benefit of the public, I ask, one of the 3 sustainability objectives related to planning is an environmental one. Now, that means I need to ask you to explain why you want to knock down an existing building, because the carbon footprint of doing that is considerable, and replace it with a different building.
Yes, so the answer to that is multifold. Obviously, for those members who were able to see the site this morning, you can appreciate that it probably doesn't meet any standards. Single thickness walls, no insulation, and no renewables at all. We have looked at this carefully because obviously our IBA guidance is to reuse as much as possible. We will be using a lot of the demolition materials within the site in terms of the cut and fill. And the other thing is that the application has been supported by an energy statement, which demonstrates that the majority of the energy requirements will be used from a fabric first base based on renewables, as Ed's already outlined, the air source heat, the high quality insulation qualities of the building, solar voltaic, that we're not quite carbon neutral, but going forward, the carbon footprint of the building will be considerably better than the one that is there at the moment. Ed, I don't know whether you want to...
Yeah, I mean, I'd love to just talk about the whole sustainability of this and how we've addressed this architecturally, because as I've blurred through in my 5 minutes, there's an awful lot we're pumping into this building, as it were. So, unlike retrofit photovoltaics, the entire roof will be one big photovoltaics. That's an enormous amount of sustainable energy that's going to be produced from that alone. We'll have a mechanical vent heat recovery system, which means no hot air escapes. They're built with fresh air, cool air, keeping a constant heat and temperature. We have an ICF construction system proposed, which is incredibly efficient. So this house will be beyond building regulation standards. We'll be sort of spearheading the way to passive house territory. We have a fantastic landscape scheme, which is going to be biodiverse, going to encourage habitats. I think we've got an entire drawing somewhere that sort of picks out all of these different elements. Air source heat pumps, I've done that, MVHR. Yeah, it really does go on. High thermal U-valley glazing, sort of like a grand design moment.
Yes. Can I just ask you about the glazing, actually, as you've just mentioned it? Because obviously glazing on a building with lots of glazing is really important. But one of the problems with lots of glazing going forwards is actually overheating. But you've put something in the documents about the technicality of the glass. I was wondering if you could explain that to members.
We'll do a double act again. And actually, I was going to mention it because it came up in the garage application earlier. Yes, you do have an issue with large glazed areas. So what we've suggested is, and there's a proposed condition in the officer's report, and we've suggested a special Pilkington type glass or equivalent, because obviously technology is moving on all the time, such that there's no light spill out into the countryside, so you can see out but you can't see in, as it were, and that helps with light pollution. But it's also incredibly energy efficient. And without getting too evangelical, Ed's going to explain the technical details.
Well, yeah, so we have glazing systems which are very energy efficient, sure. I think one of the other merits of this building is how it's been passively designed. So there's a lot more to it than just these two roofs. That all is part of the design. We have large overhangs on the canopies, as Duncan's pointed out. All of the windows are inset, especially where we look at the balconies. And what that does is that creates solar shading. So we're already at a point where the glazing doesn't receive as much direct sun throughout the summer as typical buildings, building like this. And in the winter, it receives more. So actually, it heats up more in the winter from solar gain, heats up less in the summer due to blocking solar gain. So it all works hand in hand.
Thank you. I've got Councillor Kimberley. Thank you.
Thank you very much. I mean, taking the visit, it was interesting taking part in the site visit earlier on today, and just sort of getting a sense of the layout of the existing property and the existing structure. I noticed the old structure seems to connect directly onto the property boundary. Did I understand correctly that your plan is actually going to withdraw a little bit from that boundary?
Absolutely.
I've got a number of questions. The other thing I was going to ask was sort of going a bit broader. Given the different architectural shapes and sizes of the properties along Whittington Road, it would seem to me very difficult to imagine how you would create a build that can be consistent with its surroundings in a meaningful sense. How did you approach this challenge? How did it feature in the design process? And what consideration did you give in terms of impact to the neighbours with this development? Because obviously this is something which will stand out as a very modern property. So what considerations towards neighbours did you come up with during the design process?
Yeah, so taking the first point about distance from the boundary. So Duncan, I don't know whether you can put up, the existing house goes right up to the boundary, and if I could just slightly correct something that Duncan said, we've got a great big hedge on the western boundary, or both boundaries of our client's property, but to the west it's separated by a public footpath, and then there's another hedge and a 1.8 metre close boarded fence. So what we've done, and there is a plan showing distances in your pack, is we've moved the, both sides, we've moved away from the boundary. So on the eastern side at number 8, you'll notice that Mr. Birds thanked the applicant for moving away from the boundary and moving you didn't see it, moving the front door around to the front, because at the moment the front door is slightly on the side. And then on the other side, obviously, we have got the technical constraint of the oil pipe meters, and then a total of 7 meters in terms of construction. And again, your officers have got all of those foundation details as to how that is going to be constructed. So we are about 8.3 metres away from 5 Whittington Gate, and then we are about 5.1 metres away from number 8 Whittington Road. So we're actually coming in, and Ed will talk to you about how that design process started at the pre-app, and what we start with the planning officers is a massing exercise about how tall, how wide, etc. But that was an iterative process taking into account those comments as they were received. Is that correct?
Absolutely, yeah, thank you. So yes, we had a fantastic pre-app where we established a lot of constraints and really read the site, and I think this is a fantastic image we've got here. We can quite clearly see an upward arc in the master plan, if we call it that, of this row of buildings. That was the first thing that we latched onto, is that we need to, if anything, reinforce this, and the current building doesn't do that with its existing L shape. So in fact, and this is a horrible drawing because it shows the roof, and the roof looks very overbearing with its overhang, but you can see the arc and the curve. So that was something first that needed to be considered and represented. The second thing was all of our design ethos from here was, how do we reflect the vernacular style? How do we do something that feels as if it's in keeping with the area, contributes to the area, but also stands alone as contemporary architecture, not being pastiche? What we've got here is a skillion roof. Could you bring up a elevation, please, Duncan? Thank you. So two sloping roof forms known as a skillion roof. That's typical of the area to have a sloping roof. So flat roofs are out. Let's go for something that mirrors the vernacular. Breaking the form into two sections with a glazed middle really breaks that apart, stops it from feeling overbearing. And then with this sloping roof, this is something that's very important. If you consider the actual peak of the sloping roof, it's not anywhere near that high at the lowest end, and that's the end that matters. Where we're adjacent to each neighbour, we actually are lower than number 5's ridge, or even their eaves, and the perceived height of that roof diminishes over perspective foreshortening. So not only does it look great, in my opinion, it actually does a very important job of reducing any real issues in terms of light overbearing impact and massing. Did that? I think I could keep going. So.
I think that answered most of my questions. Thank you.
Thank you.
I think it's also worth, just if I may, just reiterating that we did a full daylight and sunlight assessment with this scheme, which formed part of the application. And because of the nature of the then objections, which have now been removed, the officers felt it was important to do a peer review, so appointed your own expert to look at the daylight and sunlight. And that confirmed, I think, Duncan, perhaps you ought to speak to that, that confirmed that there were the daylight and sunlight aspects is absolutely fine, and there's no impact on any of the adjoining properties.
Yeah, thank you. I've got Councillor Cross now, please.
Thank you, Chair. Yes, you mentioned the energy statement. So really quite impressive, 79% of the typical energy consumption being through renewable sources, which is just staggering. So am I right in understanding that there's basically a coating on the entire of the metal roof panels, which converts them into effectively one big solar panel? Or
Could you bring up the sustainable drawing? Okay, well that's perfect. So effectively what you're looking at there would otherwise be referred to as a standing seam roof. So you've probably seen this zinc roofs seamed together. Within those seams are permanent photovoltaic panels. So every single tray is one large photovoltaic panel. So of that entire roofscape, the only bit that isn't is the seam itself. So it really is.
so it's an inset but bonded on.
It's an integrated system.
Thin film panel that's basically bonded
Correct.
on, but it's okay.
Manufactured as a full unit. Yeah.
Okay. Interesting. Thank you. Always good to hear and see these coming in. And the air source heat pump, whereabouts is that located, please? Just
Could you go to the ground floor plan, please, Duncan? Sorry, Duncan.
If I could just, while Duncan's finding that plan, again, there's a condition. So there's a British standard for air source heat pumps that they can't be above a certain specified, and that's part of the application. Because I think that we've all heard them and thought, gosh, you know, but this is a very quiet specification. Can't remember the manufacturer at the moment, but again, are equivalent, but it's less than the British standard of acceptability, and it is controlled by condition. Sorry, Ed.
Well, we can go off that. It's behind the garages there. So the long garage to the north of the principal dwelling, it's to the left-hand side there. So it's not neatly tucked away, not visible, and shouldn't create any problems in terms of sound. Yeah.
So it's very, so it's sort of away from other residents' bedrooms, for example. So, thank you.
Councillor De Serra, please. Thank you.
Thank you. I don't think I noticed when we were on the site visit, but that the shading. So on page 63, this bit here, that's garages, is it?
Sorry, you're pointing towards one of the roofs. So it's this lighter grey above.
I'm pointing to that.
Sorry, yes.
Those are garages, are they?
That's garages.
Is there a view of how they look? Because I don't remember seeing anything about that.
The elevation is shown. They're in the same style as the dwelling. So again, another sloping roof, all with photovoltaic panels on top of
I don't know why I don't remember it.
So if you recall, some members park just in front of the existing garages and some members put their bicycles within it. So it's an existing carport and then there's a garage. Those will be demolished and pulled away from the TPO tree. You can you see the single story element on the bottom left-hand? The single story element?
to the right-hand side. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yep.
Okay, thank you.
And you'll have cycle parking within that garage?
Yes, cycle park. The clients are intending to cycle, run, one of them is anyway, to the hospital, and there are 5 dedicated spaces, I think, within the those garages.
Within the garage, and there's also further sheds and lockups for more. Yeah.
Councillor Kimberley?
So thank you very much, Chair, for indulging me. I've just realised there was a question which one of my wonderful colleagues raised while we were actually on the site visit, and I wanted to ask it since I've been just glancing through the biodiversity section of the report on page 65, which is talking about the use of soil. Obviously, what you've got with the back of the property at the moment is almost pristine wilderness, if I may put it that way, at this moment in time. But what it does seem to have is fairly, it seems to have a lot of soil and a lot of old soil that's developed over that time. Will you be taking efforts to ensure that that is retained during the construction process, not lost, and then reused in the property in its final version?
Okay, so there are 2 areas I need to point you to. The first is, whilst we have got a construction management plan, there is one already submitted, and you will see that essentially, if you've got the building here, we've got a building area, a sort of containment area, which is entirely within that. So all of the stores, all of the welfare areas, all of the loos, all of the demolition, etc., will be contained within that. So beyond, if you think about it, and I know that some of you walk down to it, so where you come, first bit of the back garden, it's on a terrace, and then there's nothing will go down there. So none of that will be impacted as part of the scheme. And you've got 3 areas of the rear landscape, which is the formal patio terrace area. And then you've got steps down to a grass because there's a son and he's football mad. So they're hoping for something of a slightly sloping football pitch. And then more than 1/3 of the site going on beyond that is the wildlife area. And the landscape architects have done a fabulous job specifying what will go in there. So that's supported by the ecology statement as well. So you've got it in 2 places. So you've got it in the tree plan and in the construction environment management plan as well.
So just to clarify, one very, very short follow-up from that. I presume that the rather dodgy-looking staircase that leads down one side from the upper sort of terrace down below, I presume that will not be remaining in the form that it currently does.
So it will be removed, and the new staircase levels, it was on the site plan, is in the centre of the site, as it were. But nothing will be developed beyond there.
Very glad to hear that.
Yeah, thank you. And we've also, with regards to ecology, we've got the informative after the, were you going to say that? Yeah, which I think is very helpful about what to do if you come across a protected species, but also a reminder about what we've got, Ringway and works on the public highway, and the WRS Code of Best Practice for Demolition and Construction Sites. So all stuff you'll be taking note of, I'm sure.
So the WRS demolition code is already in our construction management plan, and obviously it has to be taken into account. There will be, for those of you who drove in, a slight widening of the drop curb onto the Whittington Road, and obviously that's in the county highway, and that can only be done by your approved contract, the county's approved contractors, Ringway. So that will be happening.
Do I have Pat?
I'm not sure if this is a question for Duncan Rudge or for our applicants, or you, really. We were talking about the informative, and we don't see that many of those. And the point is, I think, that the informative has been pre-agreed. So, in fact, it's not a condition, but it is important.
Thank you. Pre-commencement conditions are always required to be agreed with an applicant before a decision is issued. When it comes to informatives, we try to be quite selective because overuse of informatives can result in people not bothering to read them because there are so many. So we try to adopt a very targeted approach, and that's how we've arrived at the ones that you see in the agenda this afternoon. Thank you.
But also because it forms part of the application, it's entirely enforceable by you.
Thank you. Are we done with questions for the, yeah. Oh, just one more, Councillor Stavry.
Thank you, just one more, yes. Looking at the space on the internal plan that's marked laundry, page 61. Because this build deliberately has no windows on the side, as I understand it, is any natural light going into that space at all? I just wondered. Yes. No natural light at all. Okay. And there's going to be some sort of ventilation then for tumble dryers and stuff.
The whole building is under the MVHR system, so effectively every single room has an extract fan if you like.
Oh, fine. Okay. Yeah. Well, thank you.
Great. Are we done with questions? Yes, thank you. You're free to step back, please. Thank you. Can I open the floor for questions for officers, please? I'll start with you, Councillor Rand. No, not ready. Councillor Cross, no question? No questions? No. Councillor Kimberley?
It's not necessarily one that's for the sort of committee or sort of... Just really out of curiosity, one of the things that emerged from the site visit was the fact that the existing property has obviously evolved a great deal over the time that it has existed. I presume that there is an archive of records to be reviewed somewhere in the world, which actually sort of outlines some of that history. Does that actually exist to your knowledge? It was just something that I was very curious to know.
Chair, I can only provide a really brief response to that, and the answer is I don't know. I've had to step in at short notice. The case officer has done a brilliant job, if I might say so, with the report and the assessment of the application, but it's just not a level of detail that I'm cited on. I do apologise.
Yeah, thank you, Councillor Kimberley. I thought you were going to mention something else, actually. I thought you were going to mention something about permitted development rights. I don't know why. I had a feeling about, you know, will this house, in the future, would this house be able to extend through permitted development? Do you know what I mean? Because we've had this in the last one. Do we need to do anything about that? Is that within the report?
Chair, I've been scrolling through the report, and I am 99.9% sure that we've included a condition removing permitted development rights, but just bear with me a second, the report's jumping around a little bit.
I don't know what you'd want to add.
So I think that is already covered.
I thought it was, but I couldn't find it. But
So
that doesn't mean it isn't.
the recommended condition 8 refers to no extensions, porches, roof additions or outbuildings without first obtaining planning permission. And it might be just worth noting the condition 9, which also limits the use of the green roof area, so as not to undermine the aim of protecting privacy. Yes, thank you.
Okay, if we've got no further questions, we'll move to comments then, please. We'll start the debate. Councillor Round.
Thank you, Chair. I have to say, first off, I absolutely love the design. I think I'm blown away completely by the ambition of the applicants and the complete professional approach that they've taken. And I think really the owners and the planning team, their planning team ought to be commended. It's been an excellent application to watch and see. The thoroughness has been amazing. And I can see that a considerable amount of work has been done by the applicants in providing every conceivable report possible that's been asked for by the planning department. And the environmental credentials are amazing. I'm just really, really pleased to see such an amazing application before us. The ambition is so lovely to see. I'm really pleased with it. It's blown me away a little bit this afternoon, to be honest, to see it. So thank you. It's been great.
Oh, thank you, Councillor Round. That's appreciated. Anyone else want it? Councillor Zazara, go ahead.
Yeah, I completely agree. Thank you, Chair, with your comments. And if you had been able to see what it's replacing.
Sorry, I already know it really well. I already know that site really well because I would love to have owned that house, and I can see, as I've walked past so many times, what it's like. I know that property really, really well. Thank you.
So yes, I agree. I think it's an excellent design and a substantial improvement on what's there.
Thank you, Chair. Yes, confession, when the first document I opened was the artist's impression, and my first thought was, crikey, this is quite a lot, just purely from that elevation. But then having been on site and seen the fantastic view, and then seeing actually how in the artist's impression you get the feeling, crikey, this is really big. This is really significant, but actually going on site and then seeing how actually the existing building already is quite wide, it's just that the height and the massing. So the initial thought when I looked at it was a bit concerning, just like, oh, crikey. But the more we've looked into it and the quality of the details coming through is really, really persuading. So yeah, I'm happy to support this. There's a lot of innovation. There's a lot of good detail in here. Fantastic design. I hope the quality of the self-build stands up to this and achieves this. But fantastic. Yes, happy to propose this.
Thank you very much, Councillor Cross. Your proposal is noted. I've still got some people to speak. Councillor Kinsley.
Yeah, thank you, Chair. I was particularly glad to see that there were clearly some substantial concerns from a neighbour, and they were obviously taken very seriously to the extent that those objections were withdrawn. So I just wanted to sort of commend officers and agents on their work there. It is our job to take the views of residents seriously, which is why we have our lengthy discussions here. And so it was really good to see that objection was removed. So thank you for that. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Kinsley. I agree. And the proactive nature of the applicant doing with the pre-application as well, I would say that's best practice. Thank you. Councillor Agar?
Thank you. I think it was tremendously important that we did make that site visit, because you look at the application and you think there is this aesthetic judgment here. How do we go with that? Because it's a matter of taste, isn't it? And we saw on site how illegible the current building is, how inconvenient it would be for modern uses, I think, or for a family. And and how shabby and completely dated it is. And that was what convinced me really that it should be replaced. And we were able to see the various sight lines, the different ground levels, the privacy issues became clearer, the relationship to the buildings on either side were clear. And with all of that in mind, I think that I would certainly want to approve this application. So thank you for the opportunity of going on a site visit. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you, Pat. We had a really good discussion at our pre-meet about the benefits of a site visit with officers. And, you know, I think it was really isn't flat, where the relationship with neighbours is really important to understand. But also, when you're considering demolishing a building with the embodied carbon, it's really important to do things right. And at the moment, I'd say that house is pretty uninhabitable, actually. It's an empty home, and bringing back a house that is secure and providing a family home is really important and carries great weight, I would say. I've got Councillor Barnes. Thank you.
If only all the applications came in like this. No, the green credentials, stunning. It's going to be a lovely home. And the tree preservation order in the front is going to be respected. So I just wish you had more like this. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Barnes. Councillor Kimberley.
I was going to say, the old property on this site, I'm always loath to lose a piece of our history, and yet, walking through the property we did today, it's not a living space, it's full of mould, there are cracks everywhere, there's around the future of that structure, and it's got all the living amenity of a liminal horror game. I personally would not wish to reside within a property that reminds me of the back rooms, and therefore I would be very happy to see this proposal go forwards. In one word, it is outstanding. Please may I second? Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Kimberley. You are brilliant to second it. Thank you very much. So I had a proposal. Who proposed? I'm so sorry. Councillor Cross. Great. Okay. So, sorry, it's a long afternoon. So in summary, at the moment, we've got no proposed amendments to conditions. I don't think I've heard anyone say anything particularly negative. No. Okay. Has everyone spoken? Yes. Are we therefore prepared to move to a vote? We are. Okay, great. I've got a seconder. So I've got a proposer from Councillor Cross. I've got a seconder from Councillor Kimberley. Okay, you're both happy to go to vote? Great, lovely. So can I see all votes in favour, please? That's unanimous, thank you. So that is done. We have got some any other business. I've just got Councillor Barnes who wishes to speak first of all. Thank you.
Thank you, Chair. In our October meeting, there was a very long discussion of windows in the archway of the railway. And I'm delighted that our concerns were taken on board, and the new window design is absolutely spot on for the age of that property. I'm very grateful for all the extra work that happened to make that happen. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you, Councillor Barnes. Well said. I think it does look great and much improved on the proposal that we received at committee. I've now got Duncan to talk about the future of planning a little bit, please. Thank you.
Thank you, Chair. Just very, very, very briefly. We're very conscious that we're anticipating some policy changes with a new MPPF at some point, and quite possibly this side of Christmas. Other changes to planning, the introduction of national development management policies, for example, and other things to be expected as well. Just to reassure you that we appreciate that you're asked to comment on those things and get up to speed almost as quickly as we are as officers. So as and when those things come about and are published, we will look to very quickly assess whether it would be helpful to provide you with a briefing note or perhaps a briefing session on a Teams call. We'll have to sort of, I think, judge that as and when we see what comes forward when, but just wanted to reassure you that we are thinking about those things and want to help you keep as up to date as you possibly can. Thank you.
Thank you, Duncan. That's really reassuring. I was very conscious that a lot is happening and we'd all possibly be a bit worried that we've got to keep up with it. I'd just like to close the meeting but say a huge thank you to you all, to all the officers, admin and everybody who's come along to Planning Committee this year. Please have a healthy, happy Christmas, enjoy your break, and I'll see you at the January planning applications. Thank you.